All right. All right. Thanks for coming out today. We've been getting a lot of questions over the last week, as you can imagine. And Jeff and I wanted to put together a forum for you guys to ask whatever questions you have, whatever's going on in real estate right now. A lot of people are asking the same questions. So I think hearing the answers as a group are really going to help everybody out. It's been a pretty interesting time, obviously, over the last week or two, as we can all see. And a lot of things come to light, a lot of observations that I've had. And one of the things I was thinking about this afternoon before the call was, a lot of this seems like people cramming for a test. And there's a lot of differences between the people that are scared right now and the people that are prepared right now. And this feels a lot like cramming for a test. This is like the teacher gave an assignment a month ago that there was going to be a test in a month. And, certain people prepared and started studying right away, right? Those are the people that have been doing the right things all along: lead generating, business development, all the things that you should be doing in your business all the time. And then there's the other group of people that, say, I'll just wait till closer to the test time. And, all of a sudden the test creeped up on you. Now you're one day before the test, and all of a sudden you're scared, you're cramming, and, you're feeling a lot of that pressure because you weren't prepared all this time. You weren't doing the right thing. So you feel like you need to cram and do all the things you weren't doing before. And I think that's the big difference that I'm seeing between the people that are, relatively calm right now. They're the ones that have been doing the right things all along and lead generating and providing value to their clients and, all the things we talk about all the time. And the people that haven't been doing that are the ones that are feeling a little bit more of the pressure. And, so I started thinking a little bit about, what is procrastination and why do people procrastinate? And, one of the reasons why people procrastinate a lot is because of the distractions, right? We have a lot of distractions in our life, especially when things are normal, whether you have kids, family. I know especially with kids, you have sports and school and all these things. And when things are normal, you have so many distractions going on in the course of the day, some of them, less important than others. And those distractions are what causes us to procrastinate in the things that we're supposed to be doing in our business all the time, which, again, it's business development, it's lead generation, it's follow-up, it's providing value. It's the stuff we talk about all the time yet. And while it's the most important, it's the thing that a lot of time gets pushed to the back burner. And what happens is when people procrastinate so much, the procrastination in and of itself becomes the routine. And when you procrastinate so much, that just becomes your normal routine. It just becomes a normal thing just to push things off. When you're saying, well, I'll just wait till tomorrow to do it, or I'll do it another day, you're always finding excuses. So a couple of the reasons why people are typically procrastinating, number one, you overestimate how much time you have to perform certain tasks, right? Number two, you overestimate how motivated you're going to be in the future to do those tasks. That's one of the reasons why I work out and do my exercise in the morning, because that's when I'm the most motivated. I don't want to leave it up to chance and I'm going to be motivated at the end of the day to go work out, because I know that I won't. I'll be tired. Something will come up. Something will get in the way. So I don't want to overestimate how motivated I'm going to be in the future. That's the reason why a lot of people do work out in the morning. That's the reason why we say get your most important task of the day done first thing in the morning, before anything gets in your way and before you overestimate how motivated you're going to be. Also, people underestimate how long certain activities are going to actually take to complete, right? So you say, well, I'll just do my lead generation and business development once I get done X, Y, and Z. And you underestimate how long that X, Y, and Z is going to take. So you never end up doing the important things. Also, you mistakenly assume that you're going to be in the right frame of mind to start doing those things. You're not in the right frame of mind, right? So I just made a couple notes here and then we'll jump into the question. So the reality is, if you wait until you're in the right frame of mind to do certain tasks, especially the undesirable ones, the making the phone calls, the doing the lead generation, the knocking on doors, or, whatever the planning things are that make you feel uncomfortable, you probably find that the right time never comes and the task actually never gets completed. Also, self-doubt can also play a major role in why people are not doing the uncomfortable things like lead generating and doing certain things in their business. When you're unsure how to tackle projects or you're insecure in your abilities, you might find yourself putting it off in favor of working on other tasks that are keeping you busy, but maybe less important in driving your business forward. So 15 quick reasons why people procrastinate. Then we're going to jump into the questions. Number 1, not knowing what needs to be done. Number 2, not knowing how to do something, right? You may not know how to lead generate or the things that you need to do to lead generate, or what even lead generation means, right? We talk about that all the time, but a lot of times people don't actually know what that means. Number 3, not wanting to do something, right? Not wanting to do something is a reason why you don't do it, but really in reality, that has nothing to do with anything. You still need to do it. Number 4, not caring if it gets done or not. Number 5, not caring when something gets done. Number 6, not feeling in the mood to do it. Again, we're talking about all reasons why people procrastinate, and specifically for you guys, or just in general, why people are not doing the things they should have been doing all along in their business and why they're feeling the stress now. Number 7, being in the habit of waiting until the last minute. Number 8, believing that you work better under pressure, right? A lot of people feel like they work better under pressure. And now I always used to hear that in college, that people felt like they worked better under pressure. That's why they crammed for tests, and they didn't want to forget things and study too early. Number 9, thinking that you can finish it at the last minute. Number 10, lacking the initiative to get started. Number 11, just forgetting, right? A lot of times people forget. Number 12, blaming sickness or poor health on it. Number 13, waiting for the right moment to do it. Number 14, needing time to think about the task. And last but not least, delaying one task in favor of working on another. So, as I kind of started to prepare a little bit for this open forum to make these, have these questions, I just, I wanted to talk about that topic, because I think a lot of the pressure that a lot of us are feeling is coming from a lack of being prepared, right? Maybe you didn't cut your expenses quick enough like you should have, like we always talk about. Maybe you haven't been building your pipeline big enough. Maybe you haven't been doing all the things you should be doing to prepare for a shifting market, right? Because we've been talking about it for a couple of years, and we kind of been waiting for it to come for the last couple of years. And it hasn't come. 2 years ago, we thought it was going to happen, and it didn't happen. 1 year ago, it didn't happen. And then pretty much all of a sudden, overnight, boom, the market changed. And we're like, shoot, we're not prepared for it. And finally, we're seeing the results of what happens when we're not prepared, and we're scrambling at the last second to make those changes. So, just wanted to bring a little bit of that to the forefront and just talk about that, give you guys a little something to think about. So with that said, I wanted to open up the questions. You're certainly welcome to turn yourself off of mute if you want to ask your questions out loud, or you can put your questions in the chat box, and I will read them off. And Jeff and I are here to answer any real estate related questions that you have. And if we don't get enough real estate questions, we can talk about relationship advice or anything you really want.
We're going to need that if we go into a close quarters lockdown.
Let's start with the real estate stuff, though.
All right, I have a question. It's Steph.
Hey, Steph.
So I had my first conversation yesterday with some clients that called me in a panic, saying they're buying a new construction house in Point Breeze, and it's expensive, and they're like, we just don't think now's the right time. So I had what I thought was a pretty successful conversation, and I think that we're all going to have a lot more of these. Personally, I just asked my clients some basic stuff, and I said, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of losing your job? Does the house still serve a purpose? What are your options? And kind of like, I think, help them self-discover that they're not going to, like, the situation won't be better if they don't buy it, but I'm supposed to speak to them at like 5 this evening. What conversations are you guys having? Or if Jeff and Noah, if you have any suggestions, both on the legal side and on just the, like, how to have a good conversation, that would be great.
Go ahead, Jeff. Why don't you jump in and then I'll pop in after.
Well, if it's a question of economics, Noah can have it. You know, if they're perceiving that they'll get a better deal in the marketplace in 6 weeks, that may or may not be true. We don't know what's going to happen. With the question about legalities, it's not entirely unfounded, and it's the reason why a couple of our offices put together addenda to provide for the possibility that we're going to run into hurdles in the transaction as time progresses. And I know that the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors put out something earlier that said they're also working on a standard form to try to contract around what may or may not occur over the next few weeks. So if it's about uncertainty with their, whether or not they're going to be able to bring the deal to settlement, it's not totally unfounded. There's probably some validity there. What I would say to that is we can do our best to protect them. Don't lose the opportunity out of that fear. Okay, if it falls apart, we'll do it in a manner where their deposit money can be protected. But if you're also dealing with new construction, that thing could go on. I don't know what the contract looks like, but if you're talking about something that doesn't close for 18 months anyway, there may be no basis for that skepticism. So obviously I would need to know a little bit more, but look, there's a lot of uncertainty right now because we're at the behest of so many third parties. Are they going to come out, do inspections? Are we going to be able to get tax certifications? As municipalities close, this is getting more and more complicated, and I'm seeing it in all the different counties, and all the different townships are giving us different information. There's no uniformity. So, unfortunately, we have to deal with that anxiety of our clients, but the best we can do is at least protect them and say, hey, this may not be an issue at all. Don't lose that opportunity.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. Remind them of the reason why they wanted to buy in the first place, right? Not everybody was buying because of a financial decision. They bought because of, a need, a reason why they had to buy, whether it was because of a job change or something for school, because they fell in love with the house. Remind them that it's a long-term investment. Buying a house is a long-term investment. And, interest rates are super low right now, even though they're kind of fluctuating back and forth. And, if you made the decision a month ago to buy a house and now you're ready to buy the house now, you basically just got a discount on the house because of how low the interest rates have gone in the last month or couple months. And that alone has given the buyers essentially a discount in pricing. If they're concerned and waiting for prices to come down even more, you're never going to time the market. You're never going to time it perfectly. I look at the stock market every day, and if you've been following it, if you looked at it yesterday, I mean, some of these stocks are just so low. And I looked at them. Some stocks I've been looking at went down 40 some percent yesterday. I'm like, this is amazing because, like I looked at one thing, it was like $2.50 yesterday. And like a month ago, I almost bought it at like $15 a share. Yeah. And I didn't buy it yesterday at $2.50, and now it's back up to $4 a share. It went up almost 50%. So I'm like, you can never time this stuff perfectly. And there's a lot of fear in the market, right? Yesterday when the stock market goes down, everybody's freaking out. And, today it goes up, you see all those little green, everything's in green on your stock charts. And you're like, everything's good again. A lot of this is fear, right? And I think things will level out. We don't know when they're going to level out. Real estate's historically a good investment. And, I think you just have to just isolate the reasons why your people are your buyers or sellers are fearful. Isolate the reasons why they're afraid about that stuff. Understand if it actually has any effect on them personally. A lot of people look at the stock market and see how bad it was doing, and then they realize they actually don't have any money in the stock market and they're not affected at all. You're like, why were you scared about that? You don't have any money in the stock market, right? Or like they say, oh, oil prices are so, oil's going down, or, the oil market's crashing, whatever. And like the news freaks people out. And then you realize, well, that's actually could be a good thing for us because the gas prices are low, right? Like people don't understand why they're fearful because they don't have enough information. They're not knowledgeable on certain things. And certainly a lot of uncertainty going on is what causes fear and panic. So it's important for everybody to get educated on all the reasons why people are fearful, try to help them understand, what that means to them and try to talk them through it. All right. Hopefully, does that answer your question, Steph?
I feel like buyers are a little fearful right now of them ending up in a 2008 situation where they bought and then their value plummeted and they are underwater before they know it. And so that's what I see people fearing right now. Although the other side of it is some of the buyers are saying, oh, good, this is going to become a buyer's market. And, you know, I don't really feel like that's where it's going quite yet because we don't have enough inventory for that to be the case. So I've been kind of just saying, you know what, just chill. It's not going anywhere fast right now because people are sitting around trying to figure out what the hell is happening.
Well, you know, the market has, you know, we talked about this for the last couple of years. A typical real estate cycle lasts about 7 years, right? We're right now at this point, probably 11 or 12 years or whatever into the real estate cycle. We should have had a downturn in our market a few years ago and it never came. So we got the benefit of an extra couple of years of a good real estate market. So people really shouldn't be surprised that things are starting to go down. Obviously, there's a lot of fear in the market right now. You know, the easiest example I can give people is like, you know, for stocks, like if you look at your stock portfolio in the last couple of weeks, you're like, crap, things are terrible. But then if things end up going back up before the end of the year and you look at your portfolio at the end of the year and you actually made money, you're like, oh, I had a great year. If you hadn't looked at it during the bad times and it went back up, you're like, oh, things are great. So real estate's the same thing. You know, it's not something that you don't look at your real estate value of your home every day, every week, every month. And, you know, if people are thinking about selling a house, you know, a lot of times people will have to buy, right? So if they're selling a house and the market's going down, that means they're going to be able to buy at a lower price. Like, you know, they kind of buying and selling kind of work in correlation with one another. So, you know, just it's important to help people see the long-term benefits of real estate and not to have them look at just everything on such a short term. If they have a need to buy, you know, if they had a need to buy a couple weeks ago, they still have a need to buy today. I see some questions on the side here, so I'm just going to read them off. So let me just start here. Jeff, this one is for you. This one says, it's from James, and it says, I have a lot of clients who are happy to list now, but don't want to list publicly. They have signed MLS waivers and want me to market the listing to our office. Is this legal?
Yes, that's pretty much the only thing that you can do, though. You can't go outside of your brokerage. There is really unclear enforcement on where the line is here. I actually spoke to somebody in policy last week with Bright about this because of some vague posts on Facebook that I got a lot of questions about that somebody put out, like, I have investment properties in Phoenixville. And there was no address, and it was just sort of out. It was in an investors-only group, so it was a closed group. And so I know there's a lot of ambiguity in the rule, but generally speaking, Bright's explanation is that if you're not going to go on the MLS, the only people you can quote-unquote market it to would be your brokerage. If it were to come out in the course of conversation with an agent in an outside brokerage that you had a property that might be available, then there's not much they can do about that, but they want to discourage that as well. But yeah, what you're talking about where they don't want to go on the MLS, yeah, you're supposed to get your Bright waiver. What I would recommend, though, is your listing agreement should also have the box checked off that says you're not going to go on the MLS. And then you can go in-house with your brokerage and talk to whoever you want inside the office.
Yeah, and I see Andrew Gismondi responded on the side as well for James. And Andrew sent out an email on March 9th. And it was titled Clear Cooperation Policy, where he basically outlined all the different things pertaining to this exact topic. So just try to refer back to that as well, because it really answers a lot of different scenarios on, you know, what to do in different situations as it relates to off-market listings in the MLS. Okay. I'm going to ask this question, but I actually don't know the answer to it. Jeff, maybe you do. Sid asked, for clients who have the $10,000 Philly grant that's currently on hold with the city, should we even go under contract, or should we just make offers contingent upon approval of the $10,000 grant? I'm not.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I think I would want to be really careful about how I worded that contingency. I'd go over that with your broker. If he needs to go to outside counsel, I wouldn't want to hold the entire deal up based on the fact that the grant process is on hold, because depending on when your settlement date is, you may still be able to obtain that grant when things turn back around. So I would defer back to trying to contract around that issue as opposed to not moving forward whatsoever. But I think you got to go to your broker and say, what would verbiage look like in order for me to protect my buyer should that grant still not be available at the point at which it's needed, and perhaps at that point we wouldn't be able to pursue the transaction.
Cool.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's up, Rich?
The first one is, how should we be dealing with clients that you're on the listing side, but the city can't issue a CO? So some lenders are kind of like a touch and feel. Yes, we need it. No, we don't. So how should we be communicating to lenders through this time?
So at this point, we're looking at all of these things as a case-by-case basis. I spoke to Jamie Ridge, who's the CEO of the Suburban Realtors Alliance yesterday, because they're sort of running point for all of our municipalities in the burbs. They are the sort of legislative arm of Suburban West, Bucks, Monco. He has a counterpart at GPAR that governs you guys, but they've basically been talking to the governor's office, and they've been talking to all of the municipalities. And unfortunately, everybody's sending a different message. So if Philly's telling you they're not going to issue a CO, I'm not sure I'd fear the city of Philadelphia, to be honest with you. They're not exactly driving around and looking for violations as often as some of the smaller municipalities are. I would want to do something to protect my client, but if title doesn't want it and mortgage doesn't want it, and your client doesn't really care if Philadelphia comes by and paints a sidewalk block and maybe they need to deal with that later, then again, I might use some post-settlement verbiage to deal with them, but there's other counties that are, townships that are asking for really wild stuff. I got something yesterday, or perhaps it was this morning, from Haverford Township. They want us to draft a document signed by both buyer and seller saying that someone will be liable for whatever they find in inspections when they do reopen their office, and that for now they're just going to do the outside, ask you to fix sidewalk if necessary, issue a conditional U&O, and then potentially inspect your house at some point in the future and require you to like install backflow valves, which, you know, I was trying to get in communication with the township today to say, well, hold on a second. If that's your position, why aren't you creating the document that my clients have to sign so that we're on the same page about where our liability begins and ends? There are other townships who have done that and created affidavits that they want parties to sign that sort of specify those things more clearly. We even had one in Doylestown that was just like, yeah, we're not doing anything and we're never going to inspect after the fact. We're just in a blackout period. So I wish I had more info on specifically what Philly's going to do. The short answer is nobody really knows. So again, if you need to create some post-settlement verbiage that says, God forbid the city comes out, here's going to be who is liable for what, then that may be your option. But we really have no clear direction right now. Hopefully the legislative arms of our Realtors Association continue to push for that. The governor has the authority to make uniformity. He can actually issue an order that says, here's what every township and municipality is going to do with respect to these types of inspections. But right now there's some skepticism whether he's really going to step up and do that. So again, I wish I had a clear answer. We're in a holding pattern. What'd you say?
Sorry, is it as simple as like an affidavit and an escrow for the seller?
It could be. It could be. I mean, yeah, it very well could be. And I'd go to Andrew, you know, and say, what does an escrow look like? And what is, you know, and I'd use a par escrow agreement, and I'd just be really clear of a sort of if then kind of verbiage that says if they come out and say something, then this is who's responsible for it. And if they never do, then the money comes out. But, you know, it's going to be up to the brokerages, it's going to be up to council, and it's going to be up to the townships. So just sort of taking it day by day at this point.
Got it. Second question. I know that we're kind of in this pandemic and showings are low on listings. So other than the fact that people are fearful of leaving their house and going places, is there a way that we can creatively stimulate more showings for properties? Or is that just kind of like a waited out kind of thing?
Offer free sanitizer.
I can't find any.
I know.
Well, it's my understanding a lot of people are going virtual with virtual walkthroughs, those kinds of things to try to avoid that kind of contact, but still have activity. I would use the app as much as you can to try to get people into your database and get them looking at homes, at least if they're buyers. For sellers, I think you're having tough conversations about what showings look like, if you're having them whatsoever, and you're going to have to get creative with the marketing. That's certainly a Noah Ostroff question, not a Jeff Beer question.
I try to be creative, but I was told that it's too soon to be making jokes in your advertisements, like stuff like wouldn't you want to be quarantined in this home?
That's funny.
Stuff like that. So I was told it was too soon to be making jokes like that.
So I have a quick question back to the COs. What about a new construction rental? I have a potential renter that wants to move in April 1st, but we don't have a CO yet, but they were scheduled to come out this week.
Well, the city of Philadelphia is still conducting inspections. Okay. So you can still get, L&I is still working and doing inspections. They actually have a new system that they put in place to schedule inspections. It might be a little bit slower than normal, but they're still doing it. As of right now, they're still issuing L&I certs. I got a few this week. We actually sent somebody over to L&I just to check to see that people were there, and they are there and they're doing stuff. And so you still should be able to get all those COs and L&I certs, at least for right now.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. There's a question here. I think this answers your question, Steph, but it says if the city goes into a shelter in place and you go under contract and can't get a home inspection because of this situation, then the only logical thing to do would be for the buyer to terminate. How can we protect our sellers, and how do we help a buyer move forward if they want to move forward? Do we just keep extending the home inspection?
So we were working with legal counsel on an addendum, and I know a lot of brokers are working on that. And the short version goes something like, if either party is affected by the pandemic in a way that a family member is hospitalized, or a third party isn't able to do what they want to do, like an inspector or someone from the municipality, then one of the parties can put the other party on notice of a required extension, which would be in the addendum as to how long that automatic extension is. If that issue isn't cured by the time that extension's over, then the harmed party or the party who's otherwise unable to perform would then be able to issue a termination and get their deposit back, or if it's the seller, move on. I know there's a lot of different ones coming out of a lot of brokerages. Some are not as sort of fair between the parties as others. Obviously, you have different goals if you're representing a seller versus representing a buyer. So, you might be tweaking these things depending on who your client is, but it does sound like PAR is going to put out a standard form in the next couple of days that you'll either ask the other side to add into current agreements, or you'll just flat out be using in all offers going forward that will specifically provide for how these extensions and terminations are going to work.
So for KW Philly and KW Mainline, Jeff and his group prepared an addendum that we're gonna use as well at KW Philly. So we're just modifying that tonight, and we should be putting that out to the brokerage by like no later than tomorrow morning. An addendum that you can attach to your agreement of sales that covers you for, to some degree covers you for this.
Plagiarism's okay.
Yeah. Figured you want to help everybody out. All right, what else we got? We're going to be getting into the relationship stuff if we have no more real estate questions.
Looks like Matt CEOs and other things in New Jersey, but I think we just sort of hit that.
I got a question. So this is kind of pre-coronavirus. So going back to the creativity of trying to get eyes on your list, picture in the listing that had a contact number to text for a virtual tour. Now, I've quickly learned that that is against MLS compliance, because I'm weekly getting half a dozen fine threatens for doing that because it has a contact number on there. So is there any other way that we could implement something into the actual listing for MLS that notifies people, hey, you can be sent this virtual tour if you do this?
Well, yeah, but you probably have to take your, meaning you want them to be able to click a link in the MLS and link to your virtual tour?
It's not a link. It's literally a picture that has text this number for a 360 tour, and it's in one of the pictures.
Why not include the 360 tour in the MLS? Why make them?
You just do that in the comments and not in the pictures? I think the problem lies in the contact information being directly in the photograph, not it being in the listing per se.
Correct.
I think MLS doesn't allow that, I believe, and I think they'll probably make you take that picture down, because I remember we actually used to do that because they don't let you put websites in MLS either, like in the description. So the way around that used to be to put, the website on the picture, on the graphic, and they made a rule that they don't allow that anymore.
I'm a total renegade because I take down.
Put it directly in all the other posts. I mean, leave it out of the MLS, but manually add it to Realtor, Zillow, KWL. It's only Bright that you have to worry about. It can go in all of your other marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Zillow takes stuff down.
All right, we've got a question from Andrew. Says, Jeff, how do you feel about agents hosting open houses? Is it essential? Is it non-essential? What's the answer on that?
So there's not a lot of clarity coming down. PAR would describe us as probably not essential. I might disagree with that, but I have a feeling coming from the state level, we're probably not considered essential. I don't think you have a big violation of the essential versus non-essential definition with respect to open house. I think that more likely governs whether or not, let's say, the entire office is open and staffed. That's, I think, more where that definition probably comes down. With respect to running an open house, I still don't think it's a good idea, is my personal opinion. I wouldn't be doing it, period. I think you're jeopardizing, if I were to do it, it would be with extreme vigilance with respect to making sure that things are clean and people are not touching each other. You're better off doing things like staggering private showings than having a group of people together all at once. I mean, I would just generally speaking discourage that, but I don't think necessarily in violation of the definition of essential or non-essential. The point at which, if we have some kind of shelter-in-place order like Steph brought up, you certainly can't be doing any of those things. I don't think we're there yet. I still think it's terribly ill-advised at this point, honestly.
You gotta start getting creative with stuff, and I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but you have to really just start thinking out of the box on this type of stuff. Even to the point where if you're doing an open house in like a vacant property, for example, and you're in there, whatever advertisements you're doing, you could say, call this number for a one-on-one FaceTime tour where I'll literally like walk around with my phone and give you a tour while you're sitting in your house. Like, there's ways that you can do that. Obviously it's not ideal, but you certainly, there's ways that you can do it if people really want to see it. You just have to get creative. I'm sure there's a lot more ideas that are going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks that people have found, maybe even some new software, but you just really have to think outside of the box. It's a good chance for all of us to rethink our businesses, to think about what things work, what things are inefficient, what things can we be doing if we get, if we're stuck like this for 6 months. What is it that we're going to do to keep our business moving forward, right? Because we have to do something. We're not just going to do nothing. So if it's reinventing our business so we can keep things moving along, we're going to have to do that. So, I don't think it's too soon to start thinking about all the different inefficiencies and ways that you can improve upon the processes in your business.
So Eric said, if I recommend against open houses, do I recommend against showings if it's just one client, precaution taken? Look, this is about, first of all, everybody's health and safety. So your comfort level and your client's comfort level is tantamount to whatever you're going to do. Okay, I'm going to leave that up to you. But what I would say to you is about a heightened communication with your client so that you're on the same page with what it is that they feel comfortable with. Noah brought up a vacant house. Am I okay with a buyer entering a vacant house? Yeah, probably. They're not interacting with any human beings, and then the house can be cleaned. So I think you just have to really look at these things with a case-by-case basis. And when you're dealing with your sellers, you have to have that conversation. Hey, here's what it looks like to have someone in your house. Are you okay with this? Maybe you need to sit outside while this is going on. I mean, these kinds of conversations that we need to be having now. And if people are comfortable with what it looks like, then, and you are too, then you'll proceed.
Lainey asked a question. In your opinion, who do you think are the most motivated people in this market right now? Meaning those who need to liquidate due to stock losses, or perhaps people who wanted to buy real estate during low markets? Well, first of all, the answer to that question is not, the motivated people are not just the ones that are financially motivated, right? Motivation is more than just about money, right? There's other things that drive motivation. So I think, I don't know if there's a generic answer to that question, but I think you need to understand what people's motivations are in the first place. What are the reasons why they're selling? What are the reasons why they need to buy something? The same questions that you should be asking all the time during any of your pre-qualification appointments for your buyers or your sellers. Understand what their motivations are and how you can help them achieve their goals, right? Because if somebody is, let's just say, retiring and they want to move to California or whatever, and that's what they're planning on doing, well, they're motivated by that, and you want to help them achieve their goals. Or if, hey, they're in a one-bedroom apartment and they're having a baby or having twins and they need to move into a bigger house, well, they're going to be motivated to move because they have a need to do that. So it's not just about finding the buyers and sellers that are motivated and driven by loss or fear. It could be, right? That's a part of it for sure, but it's about more than just that. And I think you have to ask those questions. We're like a week into this, basically. I think while people are fearful, I don't know that anybody is truly, I shouldn't say that nobody, but people are not truly at a point now where they're like desperate yet. A lot of this is around fear. Now, I'm not saying it's not going to be like that in the coming weeks and months and into the future, but realistically, we're only a couple of days into this yet so far. So I think it's, just going back to the basics about finding motivation.
Life events are still going to happen. People are still going to have babies in 9 months, and people are going to get relocated for work. The regular life will start to resume, and people are going to move. Yep.
All right, Steph is coming up against her limit on questions, but I'm gonna ask because these are all good questions.
In the quota?
She's almost at her quota. All right, Steph says, how do we feel about buyers making offers and going under contract via virtual tour, and then they go to the house and just decide they want to terminate based on inspection, quote, based on inspection? I think a lot of people will cancel contracts and use this as an out. Personally, I want to ask for non-refundable deposits, but I'm sure that won't really help the situation.
Well, look, first of all, that's not new. The frequency will increase because of the circumstances in which we find ourselves, but people property without physically having been there is a thing that we've been dealing with in the marketplace for a couple of years. We have this regularly. I don't personally think the marketplace is going to support non-refundable deposits. If it really becomes, if the market, look, that's like I said, it's going to be up to the buyers and the sellers to decide whether they proceed or not. You can ask for it. If the buyer says they're not comfortable with it, they're going to buy something else, then it is what it is. The place will dictate that. I'm not convinced the marketplace is going to support that when we've had people buying houses virtually from across the country and across the world for years now.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's just like, it's happening a little bit more. I'm seeing a lot of people say, well, you don't need to actually come. I'll do a virtual tour. And I think, like, if you're representing a seller, I mean, even if you're representing a buyer, I had somebody that wanted to make an offer on a property and thought there were 2 parking spots. And I was like, no, there's 1 parking spot. And that was the difference between him making an offer and not making an offer. You know, so it's like, how many things are going to be discovered and how do we help our clients? And as a listing agent, person has it's presenting clients to the best of our ability.
Yeah, well, it's back to clear communication. It's risk and reward. If you and I had $1 for every time a buyer bailed on a deal over run-of-the-mill BS, we'd already be higher. I mean, these kinds of things happen all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe the frequency changes, but you have to tell your seller, okay, there's 0 buyers except for this one guy in California. Do you want to take this offer when here is what the risk looks like? And it's going to be up to them to make the call.
Gracias.
Yep. What else do we have? What else, guys? These are all really good questions. These are questions that your buyers are going to have. These are questions your sellers are going to have. These are questions that some of you may have. So the more knowledgeable that you can be, the better you're going to be able to advise your clients and to help them make decisions, because people will be able to make decisions much easier when all of their unanswered questions are answered, right? So it's our job to help them make decisions, our job to give them the proper information or guide them to the proper information so that they have, you know, what they need to make the best decisions based upon their situation. So, you know, for the 50 some people that were on this call today, like, I commend you for taking the time to either want to ask questions or want to learn from other people. And that's what this is all about. You know, we're in uncharted territory right now. There's a lot of things that are coming up that really nobody has the answers to. You know, we may have just made half the stuff we may have said today. We may have just been making that up off the cuff. Who knows if it's right, you know?
Every day.
I'm kidding. But, you know, listen, it's, you guys are doing a really good job so far. A lot of the feedback that I've been getting is that people are more motivated than ever. People are, you know, finally willing to do the things that they realize they should have been doing all along, and not procrastinating like we talked about before. There's certainly a lot fewer distractions every day now if you're not watching TV and not on Facebook all the time. There's definitely, for a lot of us, a lot fewer distractions, and we're able to really just get focused on the most important things. And I think there's gonna be a lot of really good things that come out of this. You know, I put something on Facebook this morning, just talking a little bit about some of the thoughts that I've been having over the last day or so. And, you know, when you work virtually, you really get to find cracks in your business processes that don't work, and just things in real estate and the industry in general that can be improved upon. And, you know, one of the big things that we really looked at, and I talked a little bit about this morning, is the transfer of money. You know, it's a very inefficient process that we never really looked much into because it's the way it's always been done. You know, the way it works now in general, a buyer has to go, you know, a buyer puts a property under contract. They have to go to the bank, get a check, bring the check to the real estate agent or to the brokerage. The brokerage has to cash that check. Then, you know, at the closing, the agent has to request that check. The brokerage has to cut the check, give it to the title company. The title company does closing, cuts the commission checks to the agent. The agent has to bring the check back to the office, give it to the office. The office has to deposit it, cut the check to the agent. It's a very inefficient process, and there's a lot of unnecessary steps. Now, I know some of this gets, you know, eliminated by certain wire transfers, but it's not always possible. So, you know, that's one thing that to me is very inefficient, that was brought to light, you know, the fact that we don't really have anybody in the office to accept checks anymore right now. So we're finding other solutions for that. And I found a couple platforms that actually solve for this exact thing, where buyers can submit their deposit checks through this platform, through this application, website, whatever you want to call it. It goes to the brokerage. The brokerage then sends, at closing, sends that money through this platform directly to the title company. The title company then sends the money back in the form of commission back to the brokerage. All through this platform, goes directly into bank accounts, saves a ton of steps. So we're hopefully going to have something like that implemented ASAP as soon as next week. And if it actually works, I will certainly let you guys know that you can use it at all your other brokerages as well. The other thing that we talked about earlier today was around the closing process and how inefficient, that is. Everything we do in real estate, from signing agreements of sale to signing listing contracts and everything in between, we sign electronically. We use DocuSign or Dotloop or any other signing things, yet we still have to physically go to closing, wet sign the mortgage documents, wet sign the title documents. It's an inefficient part of the process. And realistically, we shouldn't have to be there. So in Pennsylvania, as of right now, we don't have, or I should say as of yesterday, maybe even as of right now, in order to do closings virtually where the mortgage companies will allow you to do that. I know there's e-notary things, but in order for the mortgage companies to legally allow that if you're not selling the loans on the secondary market, to be able to record deeds and title documents, you need to be able to do something called RON closings. Essentially virtual notarizations of these documents. Pennsylvania doesn't recognize that right now, but there's some legislation that's trying to be pushed through, which is going to hopefully approve us to be able to allow for RON closings, so we don't have to go to closings anymore. This can be done electronically and remotely, and it would save a ton of time, a ton of efficiencies, even just for the real estate agent who's sitting there. I know, a lot of people say that it's important to have that personal connection. That's the last touch point, and I get all that. But realistically, there's more efficient ways to do that. The seller doesn't really need to come, so they can do deed packages. That's easy. And to make it a more easy process for the buyer, this is going to help. I mean, I know a lot of buyers would rather not have to come to closing. They don't want to have to go drive an hour or half an hour and come sit there and sign a stack of paperwork. They want to, most of them don't read it anyway. They just want to click through it and just sign real quick. So I think a lot of that stuff is coming to the forefront about some inefficiencies in our business that are going to really make us a lot more efficient as time goes on. And I think, for all the negativity that we're seeing, I think there's going to be a lot of positive things that come out of this too, and a lot of innovation and a lot more efficiencies. The same way that, back when I first started in real estate, I used to have to get agreements of sale and listing contracts and all that stuff signed face to face, right? And I know people that have been in the business a lot longer than me can tell you even, stories of even more inefficiencies that existed even before that. But just DocuSign and Dotloop alone allowed you to double, triple, quadruple the quantity of business that you were able to do in the same amount of time. And I think, through this process, we're going to find a lot more efficiencies that are going to be created through this as well. So I think there's certainly, while it's a tough time for everybody, I think we're going to find some good that comes out of this as well. And, the agents that are doing the right things and lead generating and doing business development and doing the things they're supposed to be doing are going to come out of this on top. And it's going to be easier as things go. And, I've been telling the story all week. I got in the business in 2008. And, if you were in the business prior to 2008, and then when 2008 hit, you thought it was a horrible real estate market, right? I didn't know any different, right? I just got in, I made phone calls, I did lead generation. I thought that's what everybody was doing. And to me, it seemed fine. The market seemed fine in 2008. And then when things got better, I was able to do a lot more. The agents that weren't doing the things they should have been doing were the ones that were struggling. So I encourage you to make sure that you're constantly doing what you're supposed to be doing, providing value to your clients, business development, lead generation, being creative, trying to stand out from the crowd, all the things we talk about all the time, keeping your expenses low. Definitely look at every one of your expenses and make sure you're holding your expenses accountable. And all the things that we really just talked about, for the last couple of years, and, just reiterating that type of stuff. So, all right, let me get back to the questions. So, Colleen says, I have a settlement being held up because condo docs haven't been recorded. Any idea when that will start again?
So that's an initial fine. And so if so, unfortunately, a couple of weeks.
Jeff, your internet is going in and out. Can you repeat what you just said?
I said, unfortunately, it could still be a couple of weeks. We really don't know. Those offices are physically empty. Now, we think they have the capability to do some of these things remotely as well, but Philadelphia is not exactly that forward tech-wise. So there's uncertainty there. I wish I could tell you it would be tomorrow, but I'm not feeling good about it.
Ryan asked a question about electronic notaries. I think I just talked about that. Hopefully I already answered your question with that. And will that be permanent? The question of whether that Ron law will be permanent, as of right now, I believe they're talking about temporarily approving it till April 30th. I'm hoping that that will eventually become permanent, but right now I believe that the proposal on the table is just till April 30th. What else do we have, guys? Anything else? You guys look good. I can see everybody on the screen right now. You guys look good. Thank you for not letting yourselves go in this time of trouble.
Andrew looks like he's been in quarantine longer than me. I mean, damn, dude. I feel
Yeah.
like the wolf man.
On Monday, Andrew didn't even have a beard. Now look at it.
Clean shaven before quarantine, right?
Ryan said he put on pants for the first time today in a week, so thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to pause for about 30 seconds to see if you guys have any more questions, and if not, then we will give you the rest of your days back. So I'll just pause for a minute.
I got one question. So I'm kind of thinking this is a good time to recruit agents to the office, right? In anticipation that people are going to drop out. What's a good script for this type of economic situation?
Again, I don't think that you need to relate recruiting to the office to necessarily an economic situation. It's the same thing, just understanding what the needs of those agents are to see if our brokerage is the right fit for them, and talking about where they're having pain in their business and what help they possibly need, and talking about how our brokerage potentially could solve for those needs, right? It's kind of playing doctor pharmacist, right? You have to understand what the problems are so you can understand how to prescribe the medicine for them, if you will. And certainly from an economic perspective, depending on which brokerage they're coming from, Keller Williams typically has the best economic financial model for agents, just from how much you pay to your brokerage situation. So I think that's very important. I think in times like these, training and education and coaching are more important than ever. Just having the right roadmap on how to guide yourself through this business now and beyond, I think is really important. And we certainly pride ourselves on training and education and collaboration, and we always have. So I think that's really important. And oh, by the way, MAPS Coaching just announced that for the next 2 months, I believe, all mastery coaching is 50%. Gary Keller is basically paying for 50% of your coaching bill. So if you were paying $1,000 a month, you're now paying $500 a month for the next couple months. So I thought that was very nice of him. And also, they're now saying if you're not a MAPS client, they're going to give you 2 free months of coaching right now as well if you want to. So I certainly would say take advantage of that type of stuff, because Keller Williams, back to your question, Keller Williams is definitely a company that wants to help its agents out, wants to help them do well. It's a very agent-centric company, which means they care about the agents, and care about them doing, best for themselves and their businesses and all that stuff. So, I don't think you have to necessarily relate it to the situation. I think it's just a normal conversation to see if what we have is what they need.
And there's all kinds of live streams constantly. I think there's a daily shift stream that's open to all agents. So we should get the info on that, because that might be something appealing to someone who hasn't read shift or know much about prepare for the shift. So they're doing as much as they can to give you the resources to pull outside agents into them.
If you haven't read this book yet, now's the perfect time to download it. Sorry, my virtual background. The virtual background's messing this up. But now,
actually heard, I think they're doing a free audio download over the next couple of days, maybe completely free.
Starting next week, Audible, download the book Shift. It's going to be free. If you have it, break it off the shelf. If you don't, go out and get it. It literally is the roadmap to how to guide yourself through this. How top real estate agents tackle tough times is literally the roadmap of how to guide yourself through exactly what we're going through right now. So I highly recommend it. All right, guys. Well, unless anybody has any further questions, I'm going to end. Jeff, is there anything that you wanted to add before I end here?
Just that, we're here if you need us. And we're all going to figure out how to get through all these things together. It's with collaboration and communication that we're going to navigate these untested waters.
Is this going to be a routine thing or case by case? Or?
What you mean, the like these town halls, these question Q&A things?
Yeah, I kind of like it.
Yeah, it's fun, right? Yeah, I don't see why not. They're fun. If you guys see value in this, we can certainly start doing this on a more regular basis.
For sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Makes you feel like you're not stuck at the house.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Kristen Daly's team is doing a virtual happy hour at 5:00. If anybody's bored, she says, bring your wine. You can get on her virtual happy hour, which is a Zoom call. I asked what the dress code was. She didn't tell me what the dress code was, but I think it's formal dress code.
What does that mean? You just drink at your house in front of people?
Yep, that's exactly what it means.
So you don't feel like you're drinking alone, Mitch.
You said Ryan says they're gonna put Park as the virtual background. So. All right, guys. Adios. Have a good one. Keep doing what you're doing. Take action. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Good to see everybody.
Bye, guys.
See you well.
Bye-bye.